Good morning. Sean here, Mountains Garage. It's Friday morning. Wednesday and Thursday afternoon, I cleaned up my cylinder heads and all the associated parts. I'll insert a couple pictures of how I soaked them side by side. They both fit in a 5-gallon bucket of carb cleaner. That surprised me. I did use my ultrasonic cleaner. I had to put the head in, one direction, the other direction, then lay it down. It would cover maybe 3/4 of it. Run it with the top off the ultrasonic machine. And that worked okay. So I'll do those pictures right here. For cleaning the valves, I chuck each one up in the drill, hold it up on my old wire wheel, and in about 5 minutes you can do enough for one head. Now I gotta do the other one. So with all the groundwork done, I was ready this morning, Friday morning, to come out and using valve grinding compound and maybe the traditional method of lapping in the valves like this. Overnight I decided, why not power it? Little piece of hose and a clamp fits right over it. I'll actually show you how easy it goes. I was pretty excited. I'm sitting here this morning lapping in the valves on the first head when it hits me. These are the wrong heads. The legendary interchangeability of the LS is not 100%. I'm sitting here staring at this cylinder head right here. This one came out really nice. You see that notch? Not going to work with my LS9 gaskets. They have a printed sealing strip that goes right there. I'll show it to you. If I were to put these on, when I dump coolant in, it's going to run right out on the ground. You can weld that up and machine the whole head. Not going to do that. Got to go to plan B, so I'm going to finish these heads anyway. You know what I like about these? They're nice and light. Do that with a big block Chevy head. So no need to despair. I'll use these on something else. It was only a couple afternoons wasted. I wanted to run these 862s because they have a small combustion chamber. It would have raised my compression about a point to like 10.5 to 1, 10.4. I'll probably run the 317 heads that I have, which have a bigger valve and a better port, they say. But I'll be down to like 9.41 compression because they have a bigger combustion chamber. But that's okay, because I'm making my own pressure, so it is what it is. I don't think I have a set of other heads that wouldn't have the notch, because most of my engines are early 2000s that I have out in the box, I think. So, I think that's the next plan. Do the 317s. But I'll show you me lapping in the valves anyway. It goes really easy. My valve grinding compound, the one that isn't dried up, was $1.63. I'm not sure what year that would have been. And the one that was dried up was more expensive at $1.99. So this one was pretty much toast anyway. I could probably bring it back to life with some water. But this one here is still good. I kind of mix it up a little bit. Put a little bit on the valve. A little bit, a lot of it. I just go right around. Make sure I get 360 coverage. It's going to spread anyway, but Drop her in. I've got this clamp, so the tension is perfect. Fits right up over. Saves all that hand motion. You can go either way. Don't want to go too fast. That's about all it takes. And when you're done, take your nastiest rag and wipe it off. And you get a nice potting line. On the head, you're left with nice looking margins. This would have worked out really nice if it wasn't for the stupid notch. By comparison, here's my next starting point. Ew. But, no notch. Notch. No notch. Oh well. Other than the bigger combustion chamber, they do have a bigger intake valve, D-shaped exhaust ports instead of more round, which is supposedly better. It's supposed to be a good head. A lot of people run them, a lot of people don't. This is what I have. I think this is the next choice. I will go through the box to see if I have any better candidates, but at this point, this guy's in the lead. To assemble the head, I go ahead and put Vaseline or some type of lube on the end of each valve stem so you don't tear the top hat, the umbrella seal. And I set them on there in a 13/16 socket, taps them right on. I went ahead and assembled one just to make sure everything cleared with the early head with the late model valve stem seal. Works good. And they tap right on. You can almost do it by hand. They sell a tool that you put a pry bar in to push down, but this works pretty good. I use the rubber end of my hammer so I don't hurt my precious 40-year-old snap-on socket. And then where these heads are going to sit, I lube the stem anyway, but then I'll also put a little Vaseline or something around the seat area because they're going to be sitting around for a while. Working on assembling the second head, a couple quick notes. I lather the whole valve in Vaseline, like I mentioned. I easily work it through the seal. You're going to get the first part, it's going to clear that, and the valve lock groove is the second challenge, but if you're nice and careful, slightly twisting, plenty of lube, you won't hurt the seal any. It doesn't go down through very well. If you had to take the valve back out, you're probably going to ruin the seal. But I'm not going to take the valve back out, so it's not a concern. I also, you can see, I put a gob of Vaseline right in the groove. And here's my spring compressor. I'm not hanging on to anything. My valve locks are stuck in the Vaseline. All I have to do now is carefully release it. But I'm not fighting with anything. I'm not trying to hold the valve spring compressor and line the locks up. It just stays there all by itself. The heads on an LS are interchangeable side to side, but I always mark them driver and passenger so I'll know which way the valves go back in because they're going to be separated while I'm cleaning. So I mark them driver side front and passenger side front. So this is passenger side front. So I got the gasket sitting the way it would actually go on the engine. These are reversible, so on the other side it goes this side up. But either way, that's the front. That's the notch, and this is the seal I'm talking about. It's the same on both sides. You can see that that would hang right over the notch and be a massive leak. I did a little research at lunchtime, and Molly, who makes this gasket, they make a gasket, MLS, so for boost or power adder applications, for the 4.8 or 5.3 engine, which these heads would be intended for. I haven't found a 4-inch bore gasket, MLS, that would accommodate that, but that's still a flaw. GM did away with it. As soon as they went to an MLS gasket, they realized that wouldn't work either. So any gasket that would make me put these mismatched parts together would just be a patch, and it wouldn't be 100%, I guess. The notched head on a 4.8 or 5.3 disappeared somewhere around 2001. About the same time the MLS gasket appeared. Even if somebody made a 4-inch bore gasket that would allow me to put this head on my 6-liter, understanding what I do now, I don't believe I'd even do it. This will be a good head for like my LS Swap Dodge, which has a 99 or 2000 5.3. And I just, it's naturally aspirated. It'll go hundreds of thousand miles like it is. These are still good heads, just not for what I want to use them for. And it's easy to tell driver side and passenger side because my coolant temp sensor was on the front of the driver's side. It would have gone right there. And on the passenger rear, with this head flipped around, there'd be a plug there. Or if you're going to run a gauge, they make an adapter to go into this to put a regular mechanical gauge if you need it. That'd be on the passenger side rear near the firewall. Just for future reference, before I lose the opportunity to mark actual top dead center, I'm going to go ahead and stop the engine and mark the balancer against the timing cover. I may never use this information, but there's no better time to do it now. Doing it with the head installed, using a piston stop, is possible, but this is a whole lot easier. See if I can do this around the camera. This engine doesn't dwell at top dead center very long. You can see how quick that was. Let me back up. Some engines hang there, like a big block Chevy seems to hang there quite a bit. Right there, she starts to drop. Do that again. Right there. I'm going to go ahead and mark the balancer. And again, with a dial back timing light, there's no degrees marked anywhere, but with a dial back timing light, wherever the timing is, you can draw the marks back down and read what your timing is. Again, I might not use it, but I want to do it. Right now, it only takes a second. Nothing fancy, just a mark I can reference later on. The master plan for today was to finish the heads, which I did. And when the crazy mail lady got here, I knew my lifter trays, my genuine GM LS2 lifter trays, had made it from St. Paul, Minnesota, yesterday to my mailbox this afternoon. And that all happened. So these are LS2 lifter trays. An LS1 lifter tray is symmetrical and installs either direction. This, on an LS2 block, there would be a notch for these openings right here. So that faces down toward the cylinder. It's going to go in the engine just like this. The lifter has one oil hole. And it doesn't matter what, you can only put the lifter in this way or 180 from this direction. I like to face it toward the back because that's where the oil's coming from, but they claim it doesn't matter. But that's just what I do. Installed in the engine, I just need to install my 4 retaining bolts. So 4 trays, 16 lifters. I got my oil holes facing that way because the oil's coming up out of the back. Not that it matters. But my master plan is foiled for the day, but at least I am ready to install heads whenever that happens. A neat feature of this style tray is with the push rods out of the engine, the head still on, the timing cover off, you can rotate the engine, which will push all the lifters back up into the tray, and you can swap out the cam without having to pull the heads and lifters. As long as the lifter tray is still tight on the lifter, everything works great. If the lifter tray is sloppy and your lifter falls down, it's probably a good clue you need to change the lifter trays, because you don't want that lifter turning in its bore. Back to square one. I let the 317 heads wash for about 4 hours whole, and now I'll rip them apart. They do have nice clean looking rocker arms now. Maybe I'll put the trunnion set in these, who knows. When you're shopping for used LS heads, it's really common for there to be a tiny crack between the seats. So look them over carefully. In this case, my 862s and the 317s all check out all right. It would be visible to the eye, and believe it or not, a lot of people run them like that. They pressure test them, and if they don't leak, they go ahead and run it. I'm not sure I would, where these heads are pretty much a dime a dozen. But in this case, they're not cracked, so I can take that as a positive for the day. I was looking at some old pictures of the shop in the summer of 2016 when I first quit my real job and started out here. I had, other than this steel bench, I had it wide open down to the third bay lift. That was nice. It was brief, but it was nice. I need to get back to some sort of organization, but even in this giant mess, I try to put like things in like places. So while I was looking for my LS stuff to see what I had, I came across 2 books that I bought 10 or 12 years ago. Looking through them today, they don't mention that notch in the head. But I had read it somewhere, and then this morning as I'm lapping in the valves and staring at that head, this tiny little ember inside your brain, your memory bank, sparks up and tells you, hey dummy, that's not going to work. It happens. So no need to get too upset. Just roll with it improvise, adapt, and overcome, all those great sayings that can help motivate you. I'll start tomorrow morning and I'll strip these heads and see what they look like. Lapping the valves did turn out well on those heads over there. I don't know what these are going to look like. We'll see. Most of me wants to finish the valve grind to get it running and at least touch up the valves, at least the exhaust valves. Exhaust valves are really hard. The intake valves lap right in. The exhaust valves take about twice as long. They come out okay, but if I just touch the valve up and maybe the seat, maybe it will streamline things. We'll see. So if things go smooth, in a couple days I will finish these heads, do the trunnion upgrade, install the heads, put in the push rods, check the lift of preload, and finish up the long block. It seems to have dragged out like an extra week, or so it seems. I'm not a big fan of repetitive stuff, and cylinder head work is very repetitive. The only thing I can do is challenge myself to do it faster or better, or a combination thereof. But when there's 16 of everything and a couple of everything, you know, it gets kind of boring. But you don't have much choice. You got to keep going. Thanks for watching. Like, share, subscribe, hit the bell. I'll keep trying. I'll talk to you next time.